Okay, guys, I have moved indoors for video number two and probably the rest of the series today. So let's continuing to think about this idea of Shakespeare and Prospero, and this idea that Prospero was a metaphor for Shakespeare. And so I want to kind of show you. I want to. I want to kind of jump way ahead, skip a whole bunch of stuff in the play, and jump to page 17. Um, this is the part of the play where Prospero. If you saw the movie that I recommended, um, what Prospero does is Miranda, his daughter, he shipwrecks all these people, his enemies, sort of on this island. One of his enemies, he hasn't seen them in 12 years, has a kid, and the son's name is Ferdinand. He's the prince. His father is the king. And Ferdinand is separated. He thinks his dad's dead, and he's separated from his family because he crash lands them on the island, and then he splits them up into different groups. So basically, there's different groups. There's three groups, and each group imagines everybody else on the ship died. But there's sort of three different groups, and one is sort of the king and his advisor, and these two jerky counselors, and another group is like the butler and the court jester, and then not a group, but a third area is Ferdinand, who's the king's son, who's wandering around by himself. Well, Ferdinand sees Miranda, who's Prospero's daughter, and they fall in love. Nice kind of classic love at first sight situation. And Prospero, he sort of makes it, he tries to, there's tough things they have to do. He makes the kid carry logs or do chores or something, to prove his love for, but eventually, Miranda and Ferdinand, they get together. And Prospero says, listen, I'm going to put on like a magic show for you to sort of celebrate your union together as a couple. If you read the play, it's a very long thing where Prospero conjures all these spirits that, like, he has little spirits pretend to be gods and creatures and things. And then they do a whole play for him, and it's a long play involving sort of the goddess of fertility and the god of marriage and all these people. In the movie, it's just like a trippy light show. It's basically like they see crazy shapes in the sky that are illusions Prospero's doing. But in both the movie and the play, all of these illusions and stuff um, it gets interrupted. He has to sort of stop. Now, one thing you know about Prospero from his life, as we talked about previously, remember we talked about Prospero gets distracted by books. He gets sucked into books, and he forgets about the real world. And remember, the books he was interested in were like magic books, but philosophy books too. They're kind of linked. The Philosopher's Stone is the name of a kind of thing that magicians are interested in, because philosopher really means lover of wisdom. And one of the things that a lot of people imagined, if you had a lot of wisdom, you'd be able to sort of be a wizard and cast spells and shit. So Prospero, remember, in his early life, the whole reason he's on this island is because he got too obsessed with books about magic. And he forgot to sort of govern his country. He let his brother govern the country, and then the brother took over. Something similar happens here in this scene on page 17 of The Tempest. Prospero, he puts on a magic show for his daughter Miranda and this shipwrecked guy she's fallen in love with, Ferdinand. But in the middle of it, he forgets that there's this whole one of his servants, Caliban. We'll talk about Caliban later, but Caliban basically teams up with these two idiots. And Caliban's whole idea is, I'm going to get these idiots to kill Prospero and take over. Again, watch the movie. If you haven't seen if you're watching these videos without the movie, you're going to be pretty confused because it's hard to kind of summarize all this stuff. But the point is that one of the things that happens is Caliban, Prospero's sort of slave, meets up. He's a kind of a magical creature, but he's like a servant, and he meets up with these two drunken morons, Trinculo and Stefano. And they have a whole idea that they're going to kill Prospero and take over the island. And Prospero here says he does this whole magic show, and then he realizes, like, oh shit, I forgot about my servants coming to kill me, because he knows everything that happens on the island. The servants imagine that they're sneaking around, but Prospero's a super wizard. He knows everything. The problem isn't that he doesn't know. The problem is he forgot. He says it right here on the top of page 17. He says, oh, I had forgot that foul conspiracy of the beast Caliban and his confederates, people working with him, against my life. The minute of their plot has almost come. And so he shuts down the magic show for Ferdinand and Miranda. and it's long. I mean, if you've read the play in the movie, it's just like a crazy light show, but in the play, there's like a whole all these characters come out. It's a whole show for them with characters that speak lines and they all talk in poetry. And Prospero, he gets so into it. He's like, oh, right, my servant Caliban is coming to murder me. I better probably do something about that. And he cuts off the show. Um, and Ferdinand notices, he says, this is strange. Your father's in some passion that works him strongly. Like, he's pretty upset to stop this magic show right in the middle of it. Miranda says, never till this day saw I him touched with anger, so distempered, so upset. So the kids are surprised. Prospero's daughter and her new boyfriend, her fiance. They're surprised to see Prospero so upset, but he literally just forgot about Caliban. Now, why is Prospero upset? Well, he's upset because he's made the same mistake twice. The mistake 12 years ago that he made was he got too sucked into books, and he forgot about the real world, and that's when his brother took over and kicked him and his daughter off of Italy, and they crash landed on this island. And they've been stuck there for 12, or they've been there for 12 years. Here, the same thing happens again. He got so sucked into his own magic show that he forgot about the real world where Caliban, his servant, is coming to murder him. And this is what Prospero says. He says, you do look, my son, in a moved sort, as if you were dismayed. He says, you look upset because I'm upset. Be cheerful, sir. And this speech next is one of Shakespeare's most famous speeches. He says, our revels are now ended, meaning the magic show that I put on for you is over. These, our actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits and melted into the air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit, shall dissolve. And like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. It's a very, very famous passage in Shakespeare, and it should be famous because it's fucking great. But what he's saying here is that he says, listen, all those actors that you saw, he says, the play I was just showing you guys with all the gods and goddesses celebrating their marriage, Juno and Ceres and all, Iris is in here somewhere. The whole play he was showing them, he says it's over. And he says, these are actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits and melted into the air, into thin air. So he says they're not really actors. They were kind of magical creatures that were pretending to be Ceres and Juno and all the god of fertility and sort of these different goddesses and creatures. He says they're not real. And it wasn't really the god of fertility. It was like a spirit pretending to be the god of fertility. And he says they're actors, just like in a play. And he says that they've all kind of dissolved. So this is, again, a major connection here, this idea that Prospero is like Shakespeare, because Prospero, like Shakespeare, has put on a show for an audience. Just like Shakespeare, he had characters. Here it's these sort of goddesses, Juno and Iris and Ceres, are these sort of the goddess of fertility and of marriage and stuff to celebrate their union. He put on a show for them. Now, he didn't actually get the actual gods to come. He had spirits and magical creatures pretend to be those gods. Again, metaphor compares two things. Just like Shakespeare has actors pretending to be Othello, has an actor pretend to be Othello, an actor. It's not really Desdemona. It's an actress pretending to be Desdemona. It's not really Iago. It's an actor pretending to be Iago. So both Prospero and Shakespeare put on shows for other people to make them happy, to dazzle them, to entertain them. But it's interesting to see Prospero get so upset that once again, he forgot about the real world because he was busy making plays. It makes you wonder if Shakespeare also felt like he forgot about the real world when he was writing all these plays and doing all of this work. I have more to say about this section, but I will save it for the next video.